Okay, now this is going to be a little bit interesting because I'm gonna go into this phase here. I'm going to talk about money, and then you'll see how it all relates. Okay, money. These instruments that you have come to accept as your purchasing power are all codes. The agreed on value hold a specific frequency. I'm going to explain a little bit more about a frequency for those of you who might not be familiar. The agreed on value hold a specific frequency, a frequency agreed on by the collective. Your brain is automatically programmed to identify the code, which would be the agreed on energetic value. You therefore stay within the confines of that code, the value placed on each increment, such as $20 and so on. So my point here that I'm making is these, what we spend, what we call money, which is really what all of our lives are really tied into. This is like ultimately the end all to what we all seem to seek is this thing. What we call, identify as $20, $50, whatever the case may be, these are all codes. You wonder how you can figure what $50 really represents, okay? Because we're dealing with energy, it's really important to understand that everything is linked to a pattern. That $50 in your mind and in my mind, collectively, we have agreed on what that frequency is. So immediately you hear $50 in your mind, we could not even try to write down what that means to us. But we all have this code of what $50 represents, okay? Okay, so how does this work? Well, in most all societies throughout time, we have been assigned to a class system. Lower class, middle class, upper class, and upper middle class and upper class. Again, these are all codes. These are all codes by which we live. Because these are codes, the members of each of these classes are aware that they are limited to the codes of the class they are in. In other words, you can only fathom the monetary value assigned to that class code. There is a specific level of current, hence the word currency, which flows in each class. Okay, I'm going to go into that a little bit deeper. The lower class is unfamiliar with the code associated with the upper class, as the extremes in value assigned to these two classes are at opposite ends. Okay? So basically what I'm saying is, we are taught from day one that we're really assigned to a class. We are assigned to whether we are in the lower class or the middle class or the upper middle class. It's all codes. So you begin to live by that code, and your understanding of money is only then defined and understood by that class structure you're in. You cannot understand what it is to be a billionaire if you are not in that class, that code. You are only familiar with the coding of the class that you're in. Does that make sense to everybody? Yes. Okay, you're only familiar with that. So this is extremely important because your patterning, your imprints throughout your life, or for the first 6 years especially, has prepared you to either work very hard at attempting to be a part of one of these structures, except the lower class. You don't want to be there. So you do everything possible to try to get to these other class structures, these other codes. But there's a whole lot of other things going on in there that if you don't have these certain imprints to begin with, it's just not going to happen for you. Because you got a whole lot of blocks that tell you that it's not possible anyway. So you're fighting against yourself. You can't make it to the next class. You just can't. So you're stuck in that class. You're stuck in the coding of that class. Okay. Okay, so we can further see the use of this current, okay, in the digital age. The concept of money is becoming digital. It's simply the assignment of numbers being moved around. The numbers represent the current, the flow, Each is a code. Simply an assigned value, perhaps only psychological, but the point is that you are programmed to understand that there is a coding system which supports your purchasing power, and so you relate to these numbers according to your assigned class code. Okay? Hence, you've got the IRS who make sure they categorize you. You don't question it, you know, you're in one of those categories there, but they know they got you in that category. Okay, so we're basically psychologically tied to these codes. We'll go into more of the code breaker later. So we tend to aspire to climb the class ladder, okay? Now this is all social programming. We want to experience the value placed on the next class above the class you're in. You want to move to a richer class. But richer in what? Richer in what? Money? Because even when most people get there, if they don't have all that other stuff under their feet, it means nothing. They end up in major predicaments. So the foundation is of extreme importance. And why am I driven to be part of these various classes? Why am I driven? That's the question. Why am I driven? Now, there's nothing wrong, right or wrong, about having an abundant supply. All I'm saying is examine your reasons for the desire for this abundance, because if you start examining that and you start to realize what it's tied into, it's going to tell you a whole lot about yourself. It's going to tell you a whole lot about who you have been based on someone else's idea that they created